Hello, hello. Welcome back to this week's episode of Behind the Workflow. My name is Simona Costantini.
And I'm Tally Mello.
And today we are joined by our incredible guest. Her name is Dawn Fobbs, and she is the founder of Mother Daughter Ish, a podcast and movement that inspires women to elevate every part of their lives and leave a powerful legacy. We've been chatting just before our recording today, and she already has so much wisdom that she's shared. So I can't wait for you to hear more. Dawn is passionate about helping women merge their talents with multi-million dollar opportunities. She's been teaching, producing, and uplifting women for nearly 30 years. And her podcast explores real life conversations between mothers and daughters and what those relationships can teach us about business, leadership, and identity. Before we get into our conversation today, this episode is powered by Northflow, which is the content planning platform built for podcasters who want less chaos and more creative flow. Whether you're a solo creator or running a full team, Northflow gives you one place to plan episodes, track tasks, and keep your pre and post production organized. It's the starting point that helps everything else run smoother. And today's guest is a powerful example of what it means to build with purpose. Her work brings together storytelling, systems, and meaningful community impact. And we're going to dive into everything from podcast growth and collaboration to creating content that actually connects. So, Dawn, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you here. And for those who don't know you yet or may not have heard of your podcast yet, what is Mother Daughter Ish all about? And what were you hoping that this show could do for women and for families when you launched it?
Absolutely. So again, our podcast, Mother Daughter Ish, is all about bringing mothers and daughters closer together.
Mm.
As you know, sometimes women don't get along because they just have different ideals. That was actually how we ended up starting our podcast, is that my girls are in different age groups. So just having conversations about just about everything. And also those things that nobody wants to have a conversation about. We talk about it amongst ourselves. So, with our podcast, the hope is just to bring women closer together. The reason we have the ISH on the end is because I have so many, ladies, young ladies now that my daughters grew up with since like fourth and fifth grade that are still in their lives, which they all call me mom. So the ish is like, I'm not their mom, but I'm kind of like their mom. So, we have a great time just having conversations and me encouraging them to build better and closer connections with their mothers as well, because I just feel like we're more powerful together. And just girls are just different than I have boys too, but girls are just a little bit different. We're the life bringers, you know what I mean? So I just feel like our conversations are just a little bit different than boys. There are conversations that we have that literally we have to whisper about them because it's, well, we can't say that in front of boys, type of thing. Building those kind of relationships. And we love to travel together. We love trying new food together. We love talking about everything. But the bottom line is I love teaching. I love
Mm.
teaching and expressing things that are going to benefit in a positive way to women. And so we focus the podcast around women because we are women. So our podcast is by women for women. I can't talk about men issues because I'm not a man.
Yeah,
If I wanted to
exactly.
do that, I'd start a podcast with my boys and say, give y'all's perspective. But I talk about things that I know about, and I'm a natural born woman, so I know things.
I love that.
Yeah, so legacy and generational stories are a big part of your brand. So,
Mm.
why was it important to share those stories publicly through a podcast for you?
Well, I'll give you a funny story. Our very first inaugural podcast, my oldest daughter, she wanted to know the story of her birth.
Oh, wow.
So we centered that whole podcast because kids see pictures, they hear you talking about things, and they put bits and pieces together. And sometimes when they put the bits and pieces together, they don't get a real story. So that very first inauguration show was about her birth, from me being 7 months pregnant to the day she was born, and how it was just so much chaos, but in a great way. Like, for some reason, everybody wanted to see that baby. Her father, we dated since we were 14. We got married at 20. So everybody loved us as a couple, and they were like, oh my gosh, she's having a baby. It was like royalty or something. Like, people were running all down the hospital floors, and people, when the baby was born, everybody was screaming, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, she has a head of hair. It was absolute craziness. And so she wanted to know the real story. So I started from me being 7 months pregnant all the way up. And the reason the 7 months pregnant was so pivotal is because that's when it's like, oh my gosh, by the way, this baby was an 11-pound baby.
Oh
So
my
that in
gosh.
story of itself, she's like, I said, so you literally came home in 3-month-old clothing. So she just wanted to know the story. And it was so interesting to be able to tell her. And because she's the oldest, I felt like I owed her that whole thing. And she was so excited about it. And so the legacy part of that is she can share that with her daughters and sons whenever she has kids. She can share that story with them. Well, this is what happened when I was born. I was like treated like royalty just even as a, but she can brag about that. The youngest one, the story that she holds on to is when her dad picked her up in the hospital. He literally held her in one hand and she wasn't even as big as his hand. So they have these stories. And see, for me, legacy is so important because I wish that I could get all of those stories of like, well, how was it? And when I was born, what happened? And what did I wear home from the hospital? Like my kids have their baby books and everything is in there. The bracelet that they wore in the hospital, the t-shirt that they came home in, the blankets they were swaddled in, the caps that they wore on their head. Like they have their legacy books that they will be able to sit down with their kids and flip through the pages and say, yeah, that was me. That was the picture I took freshly born. So that for me was so important for all four of my kids, for them to have for their legacy. And my mother turned over all of her photo albums to me. We used to have photo albums back in the day instead of
Yeah.
everything digital. And she said, because I know you're never going to let those pictures die. You're never going to throw them away. You're not going to think of them as nothing, like you will keep them until the last day you breathe. And I'm like, that's very true. So I'm glad to also be the legacy holder of all the picture albums in my family.
That's amazing. That's
If
honestly.
anybody wants pictures of folks from 1940, they can call me and say, hey, do you have a
Wow.
picture of Uncle so and so? Take a screenshot and send it to me. My brother just did this a year ago. He said, when we were like at, 10 or 11, we took a picture at Olin Mills with mom and she had this blue dress on and her hair was fixed like that. Look through the albums and see if you have that album. He was like, I just want that picture of myself. And I found it and sent it to him. And it just made his day that he had a picture that he wanted. And I don't know for what reason. I didn't ask. It didn't
Mhm.
matter. But I was happy to be able to. I pulled out the photo albums and had to go through every single one of them to see, well, which picture is he talking about with my mom with the blue dress on and all of us in the photo at Olin Mills. Olin Mills used to stamp their name right on the front of the photo.
Wow.
And so anybody back in the 70s and 80s, you knew who Olin Mills photography was. It's like everybody knew who J.C. Penney's was that used to do all the family photos. So Olin Mills was before that. So legacy for
100%.
me is super, super important. I mean, it's so important to me that I'm a world traveler and I even have a women's travel group. Every time I do a trip, I create a whole section in different books to
Mhm.
show the kids all the fun things that I've done. So, when I'm gone, they'll be able to show these pictures to their grandkids, I mean, to their children, which will be my grandkids, and they can say, oh, your grandma went everywhere. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, she was always traveling. She traveled every month for 7 years.
Mhm.
And she's been here, she's done that, she's met this person, she shook that hand. I just want them to have that so that they know who I am as a person, but for my kids to have legacy thoughts.
100%. And I think that this is such a powerful thing because,
Yeah,
we talk about, especially when it comes to like your content creation world and the podcast and the things that we do and the gifts that we put out into the world, right? And everything that we do builds legacy, whether we realize it or not. And
right.
so you're someone who works with women in business and different empowerment spaces.
Yes.
And so, how do all of the real life experiences that you have guide and shape the way that you host conversations on your podcast to continue the legacy through storytelling and through the voice and not just photos, because photos are incredible.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now we have this whole other modality where we
yeah,
have these stories and conversations that live on the airwaves forever, right? It's
yeah.
incredible. Imagine we had this like, 50, 100 years ago when you could hear conversation. Oh, it's incredible to me.
It is. Well, I'll tell you something. Two things that it really makes a difference for me is especially when I'm coaching and consulting. People tell me a lot of different things, and then when they ask me and I share, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought. I thought I was the only one that experienced that or went through that." But I'll tell you where it really makes an impact is when I'm on a stage as a professional speaker and I can sprinkle in my own personal stories. That is where people know you're authentic. That's where they know you're genuine. That's where they know you're not just a paid speaker that gets up there, you read a script, you have a what they call a signature speech, and that's the only one you speak all the time. No, I could get on 50 stages in a row and I could have 50 different stories. for every one of them. So that means if you follow me and you come to my speaking engagements all the time, you're not going to hear that same story every single time. You're like, oh my gosh, another door just opened. I didn't know that about her. So that for me is so important, which is why for 30 years being a paid professional speaker, I never created a signature speech. I didn't because I did not want to be a signature talker. I want it to be someone who you never know what I'm going to say. You never know what I'm going to share. You never know how I'm going to open up your mind of possibilities. So for me, having clients that I can share with, having, them to unfold more and more about me, it for me draws people into what I have to say, just like they draw me into wanting to help them because of what they say their legacy is. I'm probably one of the strangest people when it comes to coaching and consulting people because I always start with what the end looks like first. If you could tell me what the end looks like, I can help reverse engineer that and we can get to that goal. Because I'm not a coach that wants to coach you forever. I want to coach you to your goal. And so once you meet that goal, then we create more goals or more ideas, or we build on that particular thing. So that's just how I am. And for me, legacy is so important because if you don't have a legacy that you can tell, then somebody else is going to tell your story and they're not going to get it right. They are not going to get it right. So I don't
So
allow
true.
people to tell my story. I tell my own.
I love that. That's so true. And so in this whole process, so our show is behind the workflow. So
Yeah.
there has to be some kind of workflow that is supporting all of the incredible things that you do. And so when it comes to your podcast, how do you start to plan all of the content that you're going to share? Because I know you said earlier, even before we were recording, about how you have different conversations with your daughters and you'll talk about different topics to open up different doors and different pathways. So, how do you start to plan this kind of content from idea to episode and getting it fully out there
Now,
and consistently too, right?
don't y'all laugh at me when I say this, but I plan my content by the year. And then
Oh, I actually love that.
Tell
Sorry,
us
I had
more.
to interrupt. I
Tell us
love
more.
that.
when we originally started our show in 2021, my daughter came here because the other one was already here, but the oldest one, she came here every single day. And when we got to the point where I said, okay, we're going to plan 365 topics that are meaningful, and we're going to sit here and we're going to brainstorm for the next 3 or 4 days. And she said, why? I said, because before the day we go on air, we want to have at least 10 shows already uploaded, timed, and ready to go so that we don't feel the pressure and all of that. So we can focus on getting the ads in and, sponsors and all of that stuff. So right now I've kept that consistency where 365 topics are already created every single year. Anything that you get that's new and in real time because it's happening in the public, it could be about business, it could be about funding, it could be about real time growth type of things because I don't do gossip and I don't care about any of that stuff. We only going to do things that are going to help you to grow. So if you get anything in real time, it's because it's happening right now, and I'll throw in an extra show. So that's why sometimes we'll do 5 shows a week, sometimes we'll do 3, and then sometimes we'll do 2. So it just depends. Now we're gonna always do our Saturday out and about shows because we're always traveling somewhere, always eating somewhere, always meeting, greeting, networking, all of those type of things. But we plan in advance. I have to do everything planned in advance. I have 2 businesses to run. I have 4 kids to consider. They don't live in my home, but they're still my kids. I have 7 people in my travel group that I care about, their well-being. I have 7 networking events that I attend on every other weekly basis. I travel once a month on my own personal volition. There's stuff I'm doing. So if I don't plan in advance, all of that gets a little bit raggedy, and I don't like that. I like to be very organized. I like to be very precise about what I want to do. If I need to throw something in, it won't affect the entire plan that I've already put together. I can just smoothly add it in and be okay with it, and then still get 8 hours of sleep every day.
I
Oh,
love that.
that's the key.
And yes, I know. Lots of sleep.
Yeah.
To me, eight
I
hours is lots of sleep. So I
love
love it.
sleep. I love even when I do my vacations with my travel ladies, we always build in a nothing day. If you want to sleep all day, if you want to hang out at the pool all day, if you want to read all day, if you want to be on your computer catching up all day, just let's not see each other or talk. Do your own thing on your own time. And for me, that's typically taking a nap. That's going to be drinking water, taking a nap, having a silent day because I'm a girl who every 3 months I go on a silent retreat where I literally talk to no one. I don't do anything. Even when I check into my hotel, I have a piece of paper that says my name and my reservation number, and I put I'm on a silent retreat for 3 days. So
Nice.
that to me is so important. And it's good for my mental health. It's good for my mental well being. It's good for me to be able to even talk to other people that I take care of me first. And my kids will tell you if I had my daughter in here right now and I said, "What's the one thing you've always heard me say?" She'd say, "Yes, I know you have a life that doesn't include us." Every one of my kids knows that. I have a life that does not include them because I had a life before they were born.
Like that, Don. The fact that you're able to take that time and just like refresh, that's really great. I am curious though, you're talking about like planning a lot.
Yeah.
When it comes to the actual content planning, like for your business or your coaching clients, I'm curious, like, how do you guys usually plan your own content? Also, like, how do you teach your students to plan their content? Like, is there a specific tool that you guys usually use? What are some of the best guidelines you would say, like even like when you're on those 3 days, how do you let your clients know that you're going to be out and just set those boundaries?
You know, the great thing about it is that I have clients that don't need to be babysat, and they know me so well that if they leave me a message and I don't get right back with them within 15 minutes to an hour, they say she's on vacation, she's traveling, she'll get back as soon as she can. But I'll tell you something, I'm a very old school girl, pen and paper. That's how I plan everything. Even when I write a book, I have 30 books that I've written. Even when I write a book, and I've never taken more than 3 days to write a book. When I write a book, I get a pen and paper, and once my brain starts, it's done. It's over. It's already written. And then I take that from paper and then I put it to typing, which I do voice to typing. So I'll sit and actually read everything that I have on the paper because it needs to sound right to me. It needs to have a certain flow. It needs to just be a certain kind of way. So I'm very old school. I have not allowed myself to get so caught up in all the technology to run me and rule me that I'm glad that I'm still old fashioned. I just said to someone the other day, I said, well, in 5 years, I won't have a cell phone or anything that has to do with social media. And they were like, huh? I said, "Oh, no, I've been planning this for quite a while." And they went, "And you're serious?" I said, "I'm so very serious. I will not be on social media and I will not have a cell phone." So
So
that
does your daughter run the tech part for the company in this case?
no, 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 she doesn't run any of the tech part. We do everything together. So when it comes to social media, when it comes to our planning process, we do everything together. They are good at technology just simply because they're young and that's their age group of things. But we don't have a lot of technology that we have to deal with. For example, I was saying earlier that, I don't have to use microphones. I have 5 microphones, but I don't like any of them because they all have done something to betray me that I'm like, you weren't worth it. I don't use any fancy software or I don't need anything. Let me tell you something funny. When we started our podcast, because I did a podcast before by myself back in 2013, it was called the Fobbs Business Review, where I just reviewed businesses. But let me tell you something. When we started, before I built on my studio, because this is my office, and over there I have a whole studio where I do all my classes, all my training, all my media, everything, right? But when we started, I had my iPhone and we had 2 chairs in my closet. And that's how we recorded. And we took the voice notes from the recording and added like a slideshow. And that is how we did our first podcast. I didn't need anything. Now, when I did my podcast back in 2013, it was just basically done on a voice recorder. And
Mhm.
then it was only uploaded as audio because in 2012 and 2013, it wasn't really popular for the video ones for us beginning out. It was
Mm.
for the big guys that were doing the 6 figures, on the podcast. But for regular folks, it was just get the audio part out and you're good. So we would just record the audio and just put it out there. No slideshow, no nothing, just straight to iTunes and all those different places. And then when we started this second podcast, I said, I think I want video to this one. That way we can have all the audio and all the video. And because YouTube has gotten so popular now with the video, we need to have
Yeah.
video so that they can see who's talking and who they can connect with. Because it's something about when you can see people, if you can trust them, if you like them, you look at their mannerisms and all of that matters. Because I'm that person that if I'm watching a podcast, but I don't really like the person and I don't have to know them, it's just a energy feeling. If I don't like something about their mannerism, I don't watch them anymore. So I told my daughter, I said it's going to be important for us to do video. So no, we don't have any particular fancy or upgrades of anything special. And when I do my video editing, I do everything through iMovie on this iMac computer. But that's pretty much everything. I mean, so we don't have to have any special knowledge on any software, anything. We get the job done just the same.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for
It's like when I streamline everything and I keep everything basic, it works out for me. I'm sitting here looking at my book right here called Getting Back to the Basics. I mean, I'm true to it, okay?
Yeah,
I'm
but
very
it's
true
true.
to
It's
it.
true though, because here's like, there's so much technology out there nowadays. And I think that there's a lot of it that does help. And I think that there's a lot of it that does help people become like a little bit more streamlined, maybe a little bit more organized and all the things. Because some people do need those tools, right? But also there is the place of like not being totally guided, totally controlled, totally consumed by the tech, right? Like tools are supposed to help you, not derail
Yeah.
your whole life.
Right, right. I was telling my daughter, I said, I think I'm getting myself into a little bit of trouble. She says, what did you do now? I said, I do a lot of research on ChatGPT, just the free version of ChatGPT 4 or whatever it is, right? I said, oh my gosh, but I listened to too many different shows and now I'm on DeepSeek, which is another ChatGPT type thing.
Yeah.
And now I've discovered that ChatGPT also you can create flyers on there. I said, but now I just 2 weeks ago taught myself how to do Canva. I said, I'm going to be real dangerous in a minute. 'Cause now, and I'm happy that I learned how to do Canva. But to be able to tell my virtual assistant, hey, I don't need you for that anymore was kind of sad. But I told him, I said, I'll let you continue to do my book covers because I have 20 more books that I'll put out before I'm 55. Because I always
Wow.
promised myself when I was in my 30s, I said I want 55 books by the age of 55. So I'm at 53 in September. So I'm winding down and I have to keep promises to myself.
Of
So I've
course.
already got them written, but I've got to get him to finish the covers. So I tell him, I said, I'll let you continue to do the covers because you have a very good insight and I could teach myself, but I want to give you that work. I said, but the flyers, I'm going to do the flyers from now on. And he was so sad. And I said, yeah, because he's been working with me since 2008.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and I just told him, I said, you know what? I've learned Canva. And he was like, dang it, like I'm out of a job. And I love supporting this young man. He and his family are in Bangladesh. And he's got a small family and all of those things and he's young so continuing to have small kids, so I don't mind supporting him through Fiverr and all of that, but to know that I've got somebody on my side that's been there for a long time, so I don't mind delegating different things out. But as far as like technology, I think the only thing I'm enthralled with right now is probably AI because it allows me to do so much research and so much family
Hmm.
history and so much just looking into things that I've always been curious about.
So that actually brings like a good point because like overall like AI is great. It's a great tool, but we always have to go out there and do our own like fact
Yeah.
checking and just make sure everything is still online. But let's shift into something we know that you care deeply about, Don, which is content with purpose.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, like, how do you help your clients or your collaborators overall plan content that aligns with their goals and but doesn't really lead to burnouts? Like, how do you help them stay balanced?
Absolutely. That's one of
Mm.
my favorite things. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I talk to everybody about is planning in advance. But not only that, making sure that you know how to delegate things out so you don't feel like you're the lone wolf on the island and
Yeah.
there's nobody to help you. But I have a class at the university that I teach called Podcasting for Fun and Profits. And in there, I go through a whole list of things. But as far as the balance part, the planning in advance is going to help you with every single thing else. Because if you're just trying to do a show every now and then, I've had people tell me that they don't even know what to do their shows on. And you know what I tell them? It's because you've lost the focus on the whole purpose of your show. You're trying to
Hmm.
compete with that person. You're trying to do what that person is doing. You like what that person is doing. Now you see people are doing reviews of shows. So now you want to review show. What was the core reason that you started your podcast? If your core reason for starting your podcast is because you had a cooking show, why are we over here talking about how to change a tire on a car? I don't understand. We should be only talking about food. You should be at the grocery store showing us stuff. You should be showing us recipes. You should be in the kitchen. So I think having that balance is planning in advance and keeping the main thing. I read a book called Tuesday Mornings when I was in my 20s, and I'll never forget that saying in there is keep the main thing the main thing. So with our podcast, it's all about teaching. It's all about elevating women. It's all about helping women to connect better together. And so that's everything that I do. I look at it and I go, well, now does that topic match? Which is why I plan it a year in advance because I'm not going to release it if it doesn't match what the goal of our show is.
Yeah.
So if the goal of your show is to teach me how to cook properly and how to follow a great recipe, I shouldn't be watching you talking about lingerie. I just
True.
it's the continuity. It's like when I watch a movie and it doesn't match, I immediately turn it off because now I'm mad. It didn't match. You started this show off about a woman who found her husband cheating, let's just say Lifetime or something. And then now we're over here talking about butterflies or something. Like, why, how did we get from here to here? That's why in the first 15 minutes, if you can't draw me into something, I'm out. So the balance is making sure that you plan everything in advance and keep the main thing the main thing. Don't try to compete and do what everybody else is doing. Be more collaborative focused than competition focused. Yes, the gossip shows, they make the money on YouTube. Yep, they sure do. The crime shows, yep, they make the money on YouTube. Yes, they do. They are big, big, big. Yes, talking about politics. Oh my gosh, it makes a lot of money. I've helped people start their podcast just for politics. I'm actually working with the Harris County Republicans right now because they want to do a podcast. So listen, keep the main thing. And I think that will help you with every single little aspect of what you're trying to do with your show. And if you have to be basic and use paper and pen, then do that. If you typing out everything and doing everything digital works for you, do what works for you. Like I do
Yeah.
what works for me. We do what works for us. Their method, the girl's method may be different. I have the 24-year-old, everything's on her phone. Okay. So I know that if she's coming in to talk about a topic, I know she's going to have her phone because she is not going to touch a pen and paper to make notes on anything. The only pen and paper she'll use is her journal for her investing because she's into investing. That's the only thing she will actually be disciplined and write it down. But if we're doing a show and I want her to do a particular topic, like she and I did the hot chip challenge. Oh my gosh, I
Oh,
almost got.
yeah.
And then we did it while we were in Oaxaca, Mexico. So we had the hottest chip.
Ooh,
And
that was really brave.
oh man,
That
that
is really
show,
brave.
that show was so fun. Oh my gosh, we got so many comments off of there. Like, I cannot believe you did that. And I'm like, well, I did it because it's not something I would normally do. There
Hmm.
was even a lesson in that. So, just kind of fun. That was one of our out and about shows that we did. But yeah, so to answer your question, it's really about planning in advance everything. And that way you can have a workflow that
Yeah.
works for you instead of against you. Because when it works against you, it seems like it's chaotic. I've had people that have started their podcast and because they didn't follow instructions that I've given them, they do maybe a month worth of shows and then they're
Hmm.
done. Like, I don't have the time to do it. I'm out of topics to talk about. Okay, but if you had planned everything and you wrote out the first, let's just say 50 topics, okay? If you
Yeah.
had written your notes, because I don't just write the topic, I write down the 3 points.
Yeah. I
So
think that really helps stay on track.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like
yeah.
to, yeah, you gotta stay on track. You're right. Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's actually one of the things that we have on North Flow. We call it a production schedule. And
Mhm.
basically, it like in cases like you, that, for people that like to plan ahead, you're able to go in there and start like listing all of the episodes that you're going to be working on, even if it is the next year, like for the whole year. So we have that within North Flow just to make it easier for those of us like me that really need something digital. And because I would totally lose a piece of paper if I wrote all of that in, and I would feel so bad. So it's always good to have a backup for sure. And Donna, we have one more question for you.
Okay.
What's one piece of advice that you give a solo podcaster who's like really passionate but struggling to build structure to grow?
I would say if you are a lone wolf and you don't have other podcast friends, I would say create them. One of the things that really helped me is getting on Facebook and finding all the podcast communities.
Yeah.
2016, I've attended Podcast Movement. It actually is in a few weeks in Dallas. And
We're
I
going to
think,
be there.
well, we'll get to meet in person. I'll be
We're
there at the
we're
headquarters.
we're speaking
Oh,
there.
it's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
My first one I went to was in 2016 in Anaheim, California. It was amazing. And so I say find your tribe, like Seth Godin used to say, find your tribe. I say find
Hmm.
your podcasting tribe. It is very, very refreshing to be able to get on Facebook, find all of the different podcast communities and connect with them, especially if you're looking for guests or if you're looking, to connect with other people who are having maybe some same technical issues you may be having or some motivation issues. And it's all right there at your fingertips. And, for people who don't like to meet people face to face, at least you can have something digitally that you can have a community of people. And
Yeah.
there just continues to be a growth of podcasters that are building pages on Facebook that I have found to be very refreshing. So I would say that number one tip is definitely going to be find a group of other podcasters so that you can talk about issues with, you can share things with, you can, build it. Before we even started this podcast, we had 15 interviews from other podcasters. So my point for saying that is cross promote.
Yeah.
If somebody's willing to have you on their show because they want to help you to get your numbers up or they want to help you to get some recognition. But this is the point that I think a lot of people forget with their podcast, which is the number one thing I did with this show. When we planned out all the 365 topics we were going to do for the first year, I said, now we have to have a product. So my daughter and I, we did the book together. So once we did the book and put it up on Amazon, that was our product. Then the third thing I said, we now have to super capitalize on this. She said, what are you talking about? I said, because we created this as a real company, we have to take our speaking abilities and we have to get our voices in all of the different places.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to say to you today, in 2025, my daughters and I now have 49 contracts with 49 different independent school districts.
Oh my God,
Oh, wow.
amazing.
We go in and we do leadership development. We do coaching and consulting. We do workshops. I do a career day called Career Day with a Twist for the 12th graders. So we took this podcast, and I have a good friend named Steve, and he says, everything you do, gamify it. So we took our podcast and what I call we gamified it by saying not only do we have the media, not only do we have the product, not only do we now have the global aspect as far as like contracting our services out. And so we took that and we don't just do it in Texas, we do it in multiple states. And now we're applying for a contract to be able to go to Hawaii to do some leadership development as well. So I took this part very serious because when I was doing my podcast in 2013 to 2016, I was like, I don't know how to monetize this. I don't know how to do it. I didn't even think about the ad aspect, and I should have because before that I had a TV show here in Houston and I didn't even think about that part of it as far as a podcast. It was too new in my brain at 2013, 2012, right? But this time around, I had a list that we needed to do. Plan the shows, have a product. We even went to the city of Houston, because that's where I am in Houston, Texas. We went to the city of Houston and we declared a proclamation to be Mother-Daughter Day on September 1st.
Mm.
So we got all of our ducks in a row and created a real business and not just a podcast, but created a real business where we could really support women and be an example of how you can take one thing and make 12 incomes off of it. It's like take a book.
That's
With a book,
amazing.
you can create speaking engagements, you can create workbooks, you can do workshops, you can do leadership development, you can create a whole podcast around it. Like, don't take one thing and think that's really the thing, because there's so many branches that still keep the main thing, which is
Exactly.
how we did this podcast. So by the time we went live on our first show, our binder was that big. And we have just been checking off. We're at the end of the checklist because now that we've got all the contracts that we wanted and the business, we even certified it as a woman-owned certified business through the city. So we're a women business enterprise. We're a minority business enterprise. So we have all the ingredients to let you know we're not just a show, but that we're actually an enterprise
Hmm.
really supporting and helping women.
I
So for
love,
me, that was very important. And it was one little baby step at a time. And
yeah.
again,
And intentional too.
it
These
was a
were
very
intentional baby steps.
Yep, and
Yeah.
but that's the purpose of planning because I had a tablet as thick as this with here's what we need to be doing. We can't just have a podcast. And my daughter was looking like, well, most people just have a podcast. And I'm like, well, I'm not most people. I'm not most
Exactly.
people. I'm gonna look at one thing and figure out multiple things that keeps the main thing still the main thing. So that was
100%.
what was important. That was what was important.
I love that. And that's really, really powerful too, because in my production agency, in addition to Northville, I run a production agency. And in my production agency, all of our clients are using their podcast as a marketing arm to everything else that they're doing. And that's the key. Like that's the key ingredient because you can have a show that's more entertainment style, but even all the entertainment style podcasts have something that they're selling. They have something that they're putting out there, right?
And
Yeah.
created the book, and then we have a 72 days. So we start at the 72nd day. That's going to end the year for you to put things in place so you'll be ready for the next year. So we have that workbook, and then we have a third book that's going to be coming out. We produce our books always around Mother's Day because we're trying
Mm,
to put daughters together. So our next book for 2026 will be another branch of being able to promote it during Mother's Day. So looking at those holidays and how you can tie into those, that's just another big thing on the totem pole of
yeah.
because I believe in if you connect yourself to something bigger than you, then that's also another way to keep your name in the conversation.
That's
Keep your
true.
name in the conversation. And I'm having a ball with it. I'm happy to be teaching the girls this method. I'm excited about all the things that it brings. I love, cross promoting and collaborating with other podcasters. And for me, it's exciting because that's just the way my mind works. And I'm always thinking about, well, how can we help one another?
Hmm.
So it's important that we do that. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited you ladies are going to be a podcast movie because I can't wait to meet you
I know. We're going to get to meet you in real life. And so,
in
Dawn,
real life.
exactly. And
As
that
as the
actually
kids
never gets to
say.
happen. So we'll have to take a photo and we'll have to hang out. And I'm really
Exactly.
excited about that. But Dawn, thank you so much for your time today. Where can our listener connect with you so that they can keep up with you, follow along, be notified of book launches, like whatever the best way to connect with you is?
Everything is mother daughter, and the website is motherdaughterish.com. But all the social media is mother daughter ish. All of the Facebook is mother daughter ish. I'm Dawn Fobbs. If you want to connect with me on a one-on-one basis, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all of those things. So you can connect with us there. And I hope that people get a chance to go to YouTube and look and listen to our podcast. And hopefully that there's some information there. I have a friend that says she can't listen to my podcast when she's in the car because she wants to take too many notes. And I'm like, then what I was set out to do is to get you to think, to get you to elevate, and to get you to take some notes for later. So I've
Beautiful.
done my job.
I love that. That's beautiful. Dawn, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. And thanks so much to our listener today for tuning in to this week's episode powered by Northflow. And we will see you next time behind the workflow. Bye for now.
Bye.